I've been removing the red pieces from my 2021 Fat Quad for a little while now. So I've replaced the stem, I replaced the handlebars, I replaced a seat clamp, etc. But I've been waiting to replace these Euro outboard bottom brackets in red. I just haven't been able to find the right black ones. And now I've got them. Profile Racing, made in the USA. Euro bottom bracket. That's the outboard bearing, the outboard style. This is with a 100mm spacer. So I've just unwrapped them. I'm going to need the Park Tool BB9 to install and remove these. You can see that they're set up for that. I need a 6mm socket. And good idea to inspect your parts when you get them. You can see there's a little bit of dust and debris in there, so I'm going to clean this out with brake cleaner, and then later I'm going to lubricate it with some long-lasting grease of some form, and then we'll get these guys installed. All right, the first thing I've done is loosen the pinch bolt on the sprocket side here, and then I'm going to go ahead and get this guy loose and removed. So give me just a second to do that. Kind of tough with one hand. And then what I'm going to do is pull this off of the spindle, and I'm going to go lay it over there so I don't scratch up my chainstays. So there you go. I pulled this off, laid the chain down nicely. Now I can set this aside, clean it, whatever I want to do with it. And what I'm going to do is unthread these after I remove the spacer. Okay, so one thing to point out is that these are threaded differently on either side. So you've got a left side and a right side. And it'll tell you which way to tighten it. So you know to go to the opposite way when you're loosening it. In this case, on the drive side, basically I pull it up. So you start to unthread it. They're on there pretty good from the factory. I don't know if it's because they put them in dry or what, but they are definitely on there very solidly, and you might need to use a soft mallet. You can see there's a little bit of residue from blue Loctite, so that's got to be why they're really stuck on there. Look at all that blue. Whew. These were not coming loose without a soft mallet to help me bump them loose. But you can see there's a little bit of grease from the factory. There's the blue Loctite. It's a red bearing. And we will be switching it with this guy. But first I want to remove the other side and clean everything out. All right, I've got both of the bottom brackets lined up. The funny thing is most of the lubrication is on the outside. You know, and it's not like you're going to see a lot of it in there, but let's see. There's a lot of it on the inside, but not where it needs to be. So we'll try and rectify that and get these guys going. Woo. Time to get these guys locked in there. We could use some blue Loctite here. I think there's a bit of residual already in the bottom bracket threaded pieces, so we'll just slowly start to check. What we want to make sure is that these will thread in completely into the bottom bracket, and we do not want the spacer moving around in there. The spacer is there to support the bearings under the crush load of the spindle. It's a good idea to be able to thread these in by hand, so you know you don't have any cross-threaded pieces there. And I am going to just put a drop of blue Loctite on these just to make myself feel better. So I've got the spacer in there, but you can hear it moving around even when these are relatively closed. So that means we need to add a couple of washers, 1 or 2 of these guys. And that will allow us to get some support for that inner bearing when we tighten down the spindle. I've added 1 small spacer in there, and you can see things are out of alignment. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to insert the spindle in from the other end, and then I'll tighten this piece. So we're going to take our spindle, just use two hands for a second here. Now I've got the spindle in place. Now I can tighten this guy down. After I tighten this guy, I'm going to take the spindle back out, flip it around, tighten down the other side, make sure everything looks good. Okay, so here we go, getting this reversed. Oh, come on, baby. There we go. And then I'm just going to start tightening it. Is a torque spec that I've seen on some of the others, like the Race Face. I think it was 35 to 50 Newton meters. I'm just going to go with calibrated tight from my elbow. And then we'll see. Ooh-wee. Got to get some spacers on there on the outside now to make sure that we have enough clearance here. And we want the clearance to be the same on either side. The next thing I've done is use these included washers to ensure that I'm going to match the thicknesses of the previous washers. And I'm going to do that when I install the spindle to make sure that I've got the same distance between the crank arms and the chain stays. Okay, at this point I've got things mocked up. I've got my big spacer, the small washers. I can see what my clearance is here. I have mocked up this side. I didn't put the chain back on it, but I can tell that my clearances are good. So what we're going to do is take this side off, loop the chain back around, get the chain on there, then we'll tighten the spindle bolts, you know, to set our tension there, and then we'll do the pinch bolts, and we should be good to go. Okay, we've gotten our tension bolts in there, the spindle bolts, and then we tighten down these and got our chain lined up. Everything's looking good. One thing to note is check your chain tension at different points, right? I use every 90 degrees. I'll usually spin this and check to see what the chain feels like, because it's different depending on where the sprocket sits. So can't wait to get out here and ride this thing. Look at that. Back in black.